A select subcommittee in the House has released a report on a story that we've been tracking here at the Damage Report for a couple of years. How meatpacking plants were forced to stay open, workers were forced to go there, and a lot of people got sick along the way. Turned out that was done not in the pursuit of making sure that we had access to meat. That was never in question. It was done in the pursuit of profit, and a lot of people lost their lives as a result of it. I want to give you a few little excerpts and summaries from this report because it is significant and you might not see much about it. They say that the biggest players in the US meat industry pressed baseless claims of beef and pork shortages early in the pandemic to support Donald Trump, who was then president, to do a special order to keep them open. So the committee alleges that Tyson Foods in particular prepared a draft with input from other companies that became the basis for an executive order to keep plants open. That was issued in April 2020. And because of that, workers were forced to go in or lose their jobs. The report says that the nation's largest meatpackers and industry trade groups repeatedly misled the public when they warned that any slowdown in their operations posed an imminent threat to the nation's meat supplies. Those fears were baseless, the investigators wrote. But let me give you an example of what those baseless claims looked like. The chairman of Tyson's board, John Tyson, said the food supply chain is breaking. He wrote that in a full-page newspaper ad that ran in the Washington Post, which by the way is doing reporting on this now, the New York Times, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. This is in April of 2020, saying, "We have a responsibility to feed our country. It is as essential as healthcare. This is a challenge that should not be ignored. Our plants must remain operational so that we can supply food to our families in America." And so they said that, they put pressure on people, they put together this report, they sent it to this draft executive order, sent it to the White House. The White House passed it less than 1 week later, because everyone was terrified that there would not be enough meat in April of 2020. What was the actual situation in April of 2020? They shipped a record amount of pork exports. 129,000 tons were exported just to China, just in April of 2020. They were not worried about a significant slowdown. They were worried about losing a little bit of money. And as we'll turn to in a bit, there was a cost to be had, if not in dollars, then in lives. But Brett, what do you think?
I love meat. I think it's what's for dinner. I think that as someone who currently has coronavirus, I ate bacon this morning, and I don't know, man. This is like par for the course. This is basically, if you want to make a point out of it, you could say that they're saying, listen, we have to do business at any and all expenses, even if that expense is the truth, because it wasn't true that they needed more meat. They had meat.
Yeah, they did. They lied. They wanted to keep running. They wanted their workers to be forced to go there. They didn't want to have to pay them to stay home and stop the spread and like lower the curve and all that. They didn't want that. And it's fairly clear. They looked at, by the way, to generate this report, 151,000 pages of documents. And some of what they found, they said, according to internal industry documents, they showed that despite awareness of the high risks of coronavirus spread in their plants, they worked with the Trump administration to insulate themselves from coronavirus related oversight, to force workers to continue working in dangerous conditions, and to shield themselves from legal liability for any resulting worker illness or death. One lobbyist, by the way, in one of these reports says, now to get rid of those pesky health departments. So you can tell where their minds were at this point. And by the way, so they're working with the Trump administration. They're sending them the draft executive order. They get exactly what they want with the executive order. The Trump administration then requests that the companies issue positive statements and social media about what Trump had done. So it helps out the meatpacking plants on the money side. Trump gets to look like he's taking this seriously in the meat sense, not in the saving people's lives sense. And so let's turn now to what happened as a result of this. They keep the factories open, they force people to work. There's an estimate of 334,000 coronavirus cases that have been tied to meatpacking plants. That did $11 billion in economic damage. Although notably, it did not do that damage to Tyson Foods or to these other meatpacking plants. It was broad-based damage. You and your family might have lost a ton of money, or a relative as a result of this, but Tyson is gonna be just fine. 59,000 workers at plants of just 5 of these companies got sick. At least 269 people have been directly identified as having died due to the cases that they got at these plants. And like I'm tempted to say that I can't imagine how this could be worse. But then in one of these articles, as I was doing research for the show today, I remembered something that we talked about almost 2 years ago, and it was this. As they were dying, Tyson managers placed bets on how many employees at their Waterloo, Iowa plant would become infected. More than 1,000 workers, over a third of the entire staff would test positive for COVID. At least 5 of them died. The plant shut down for 2 weeks. The managers were literally doing a betting pool, a dead pool, effectively, of how many people would get sick. And they did. They got sick and they died, but Tyson saved a little bit of money, I guess, Brett.
And as a Trump supporter, not that I am, but if you are a Trump supporter, what do you gravitate toward? You gravitate towards stories where the government is screwing you behind the scenes. They're doing these deals where it's for the benefit of the politician and the benefit of the company or the organization or the secret government entity. They're doing this behind the back, and they're back and turning around and screwing you. And that's the reason that you voted Trump into office. But here's proof that he is doing exactly the stuff that you hate, which is pretending one thing's true, doing it so he can get all these positive accolades and all this stuff, but it's not for that thing that you as a populist are fighting for, the little guy. This is just for the big guy to succeed, keep making money, and so they can step over everyone smaller than them on the way to the bank, regardless of whether they're lying or if it kills people. That's it.
That is it. And it's dark. And like I said, we've been doing throughout the pandemic and intermittent updates about this. And like some of it we knew about some of the sickness and the outbreaks and all that, but like how close the coordination was and what's gonna be the outcome of this? Gonna get fined or whatever? No, I'm probably not even going to. And if they do, it's gonna be nothing. It's gonna be nothing compared to the money that they saved by sacrificing their workers. Again, like remember DeSantis has started up his victims of communism thing? Add these names to the victims of capitalism, because that is exactly what they are.